everyone. My name is Neil Daswani. Welcome to our cybersecurity pitch competition today. Over the past 20 years in my career, I have served as both a security entrepreneur, having co-founded a company that was Google Ventures backed that got acquired by Twitter, and I've also spent time as a Chief Information Security Officer, both at LifeLock as well as at Symantec's Consumer Business Unit. In the time that I've spent in the security field, I never quite imagined that things would get as bad as they have. There have been thousands upon thousands of organizations that have experienced data breaches. There have been billions of consumer records that have been stolen. Many of these data breaches could have been prevented by just getting the basics of information security right. At the same time, there's a saying in our community, in our field, and that is that attacks only get better. If we want to be able to combat the organized cyber criminals and the nation-state actors that are continuously developing new, novel, sophisticated attacks, we have to continue raising the bar. This event is sponsored by Trinity Ventures. Trinity Ventures is a top-tier early-stage venture firm with $1.4 billion of assets under management. They were early investors in security unicorn Auth0. They have also been investors in very successful software and wireless infrastructure companies like New Relic and Aruba Networks. Trinity also, as part of their portfolio, has a set of super iconic brands ranging from Starbucks to Bulletproof to Jamba Juice to Care.com. I had the privilege of serving as an executive in residence at Trinity Ventures recently, and I think the world of the partnership there. So moving on to our event today, we're going to have cybersecurity companies pitch to a set of panels of 3 judges, and we are also going to have all of the folks in attendance helping to rate the companies on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. We are going to have a set of prizes be made available. So each of the judges, after hearing the pitches, they may decide to take a 1-hour meeting after the event, which will be first prize number 1. After all the pitches and Schwark's prize, then I will be announcing which of the 4 companies I'll be making a $25,000 angel investment into. Without further ado, we can go into our first pitch. Our first company is OnionID, and I will now introduce the judges for OnionID. Our first judge is Joel Fulton. Joel is currently the CISO at Splunk. He formerly was the deputy CISO at Symantec, and he's also been the head of risk at Google in his past. Our next judge is Kirk Feldheim. Kirk is currently the CISO at Syapse, and he has a number of CISO and CIO roles at a number of different companies. I'll mention just a few of them. He was the former CIO at Sugar CRM. He was the VP at Zynga, and he also used to work at Siebel for Tom Siebel years ago. Our third CISO for this panel is Michael Duff. He's the CISO at Stanford currently. He has degrees in computer science and physics from MIT. He had founded a medical records company and spent a year teaching at Miami University. He led the information security program at SRI International for 11 years, and then joined Stanford in 2012, ascending to the CISO role in 2013. Our first entrepreneur is Nirban Banerjee. And Nirban is the founder of OnionID. He has a PhD in computer science from UC Riverside, and his areas of specialization in computer security are authentication, authorization, and auditing. Nirban's company is a next-generation privileged access management system for mid-market and enterprise.
OnionID is in the privileged access management space. When somebody enters your house, whether you let them in or not, that's called authentication. When somebody goes inside the house and makes a cup of tea and pours sugar in it, whether they can do that or not is called authorization. And what you did in that house is called auditing. OnionID is the only SaaS-based privileged access management platform that provides authentication, authorization, and auditing in one single product. Our goal is to disrupt the market by providing a platform, not a point product. Nobody wants to buy a point product and say, I solve X problem and that's about it. The OnionID solution is solving the privileged access management problem in a holistic manner. The customer should not have to make a false choice to say, oh, I want to protect the server, well, product 1 does this. I want to protect something else, product 2 does this, product 3 does this. You don't want to buy point products like that. It has to be one platform that solves the problem for the customer. That's what OnionID is doing. We've only raised a seed round. We have single-digit million ARR revenue. We have tens of customers, and we're cash flow positive. This is a quick demo of the product. This product is essentially called Data Shield. This is the world's first privileged access management product from a SaaS angle for databases. What you're seeing over here on the screen is any developer, any person opening up a software like MySQL, Workbench, Oracle Toad, anything that you like to connect to a database. What we are showing you over here that the OnionID SaaS product can ingest information about where is your database located. In AWS, in GCP, in your data center, doesn't matter, no agents. We can connect to that database, and once we do that, any employee who wants to do anything with the database goes through the OnionID system, and we can control, do you need to do privileged access management, do you need to do multi-factor authentication, which table can you see, which command can you run, everything that you need to control what the employee can do on this database can be done through the OnionID system. So what you're seeing over on the screen is essentially the ability to say, employee X needs access to a specific database, and please send the email, set up the access, devote the privileges, and this is a very standard MySQL Workbench piece of software. Do multi-factor authentication, and we're going to show that we have an app. You can use our app, you can use Google Authenticator, you can use whatever the heck you like to do MFA. And after you perform what we tell you to perform, like fingerprint sensing in this case, then we give you access to the database and provide the right privileges for what you can do on the database. No other company in the world does this from a SaaS angle, what we do right over here. And that's why our customers love us. We have customers in the enterprise space, in the mid-market space, in the SMB space. Thank you very much.
The first thought that comes to mind when I hear your pitch is the importance of building trust with your customers. And I think that's probably going to be one of your greatest obstacles. I know that whenever we purchase a new solution for Stanford University, that's one of the first things we look at. How trustworthy is this company? You also have to explain how you're going to maintain, how that can be scalable.
So when it comes to building trust with customers, we do it in three ways. The first one being that we have our own pen test, we have our own SOC 2, so on and so forth, to show to the customer that we are following good hygiene from our perspective. The second one is that we also do code escrows for larger customers above a specific deal size. And the third one being that for customers who have sensitive information and who really want to keep their data where they want, we have a version of the service that can run in the private cloud of the customer. But you are right about the fact that you will have to do some babysitting of the product itself.
My biggest concern, or some of the thoughts on it, is the templates, and it is rolling out to multiple applications and versions of applications and keeping that maintenance going. But also, as you were describing in the short pitch, is you go right into the details of how you're going to do those, the granularity, but you don't talk about the front end side of things. How is your auth being done? How are you preventing that access coming in, brute force, these kinds of things? Do you have a risk-based profile on your authentication and so forth? And then also, as you're do you create a zero trust model as these areas break down? So if a server is starting to cause error points, do you do any reaction points from other areas?
So the first part being, what type of authentication are we doing? We support standardized protocols like, let's say, SAML OAuth or Radius, anything of that sort under the hood. So those things are already there. But for our things, we even support, let's say, HTTPS-based form filling. If nothing is available on the application, like LastPass-ish, we also can do those things. For when it comes to handling understanding what has happened and taking action, we do have integrations with some products like SIM products and so on and so forth, where we slurp data. And from our own systems also, when we see that you've tried to access a server and let's say you've been hitting it multiple times, the MFA has been failing multiple times, there is automated step-ups to say, the person who set up the policy said geofencing is good enough, but something is going up, let's up the ante to say use biometrics. If that doesn't work, use 2 biometrics. So there's some automated scale-ups that are also there.
Thank you, Nirban. So Kirk, what do you think? Take a meeting or pass?
I'll take a meeting.
Great.
I don't understand the business problem you're solving. This sounds like you're giving me a very difficult math equation to give to my overworked analysts. I'm not mature enough or stable enough to understand the complexities and nuances of 276 templates for privileged access management. And I worry that if I took a meeting, my team would say, what the hell's the matter with him? Meaning me, not you. Doesn't he know? Wasn't he in the meeting where we know that we're on a CMMI level 2 or 3? This is way above, and I don't understand what we're doing. You have an elegant product. I don't think that matters that much. I have to go take a piece of my budget and say, this business problem that someone has given me and blamed me for, a little hyperbole again, I got to solve it with this piece of budget. Does this solve that problem? I didn't hear that. I know you know it. You led with how beautiful this thing is built and engineered, and I can't have that meeting.
When you install the product and it starts showing you various things, very simple example, you slurp in an EC2 cluster, 100 servers, whatever it is, it starts showing you that from your Active Directory, based on your AWS roles, these are the people who have access. And
so use CASB. Everybody knows it. You put it in invisibility mode, it shows me everything, and you know how many people go into blocking with CASB? Like 5%.
Right.
Because visibility is enough. You might be able to close a deal and get more revenue. Like 5 years, man, you've been working at this. On 1.5, that's a good return on your labor.
Right.
But you said it's a big market, 15 billion plus. You've been here 5 years.
Yes.
How come you haven't closed more deals? Maybe there's a way of go-to-market that lets your customer not think, oh crap, I'm both too dumb and too incompetent to have this conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, that is very valid feedback. Thank you.
Our next company is Secteria. For our judging panel, we have Joseph Kamau. He is currently the CISO of the Freedom Financial Network. He built and led the first information security oversight program for American Express. He has a Bachelor of Science in Computer Information Systems and a Master of Science in Information Security Assurance. For our second judge for this presentation, we welcome back Michael Duff. For our third judge for this presentation, we have Lakshmi Hansbal. She is currently the global CISO at Box. Prior to that, she was the CISO of SAP Ariba, and she's also had executive roles at PayPal, Bank of America, and Novak. Benjamin Westerby is the entrepreneur that will be presenting his company Secteria. He is a security software engineer and an entrepreneur. His company Secteria brings continuous detection and continuous remediation to the ever-increasing vulnerability landscape by decreasing or eliminating the manual vulnerability management process through effective automation, while also adding layers of technical verification and analytics for properly prioritizing remediation efforts.
Imagine, if you will, that each of your organizations could remediate all of your vulnerabilities in 30 days or less, 500% faster than the industry average, according to reports from White Hat Security. Based on the last 3 years of data, the average number of vulnerabilities coming out every day is, new vulnerabilities every day is 40. And of those, 11 vulnerabilities are in the high or critical severity. The problem is that we're being overrun by new vulnerabilities every day. And information security teams are being overrun by that capacity. If you multiply it by the amount of assets you have in your organization, it can be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of vulnerabilities every single day. In fact, Gartner has identified that 99% of vulnerabilities that are going to be exploited by the end of this year will be known to the security team prior to the exploitation. And of those 99%, the security team knew about them for a year in advance. If you take Equifax as an example, right? Reports have indicated that Equifax actually knew the vulnerability existed for 6 months before it was remediated, or before the breach took effect, actually. But why didn't they remediate the vulnerability within the 6-month period of time that they had after they found out about it? The reason is because the majority of vulnerability teams are very manual, right? They read in data from a scanner, they throw it over the wall to the remediation teams. There's no verification, there's no tracking. Though you can't verify that the patch was actually correctly applied. And for those teams that do try to verify that remediation took place, it's a large file, millions and millions of rows, and they're trying to do large data merges or comparisons to identify what's new and what's not existing anymore. So the solution is Secteria, developed inside of NortonLifeLock as a tool for managing vulnerabilities from the point at which it's detected by a scanner all the way through the remediation process. We pick up where the scanner left off with a detection. We analyze it, we prioritize it, and we assign it to the teams for remediation. As soon as the vulnerability is detected, it's tagged and monitored for the entire life of that vulnerability, from the point at which it's detected all the way through the patch by the patch team or remediation by an automated patch tool. And through that process, we're identifying whether or not that vulnerability has been remediated in the system using the original scanner that detected the vulnerability. We analyze, we prioritize, we ticket out to the remediators. We report into the vulnerability management teams. They can actually watch the remediation month over month. We have a rescanning system built in where we can actually track the vulnerability as it's going. So it's passive scanning. So as a vulnerability ages, at 15 days to its due date, we start scanning it nightly to identify whether or not it's been remediated without action from a remediation team. We're working on integrating containerization, intelligent prioritization, automated remediation, fingerprinting between scanners, and a number of machine learning and AI systems to analyze those vulnerabilities. Individual scanners only detect a certain portion of the vulnerabilities. If you use a Qualys and an Expose, there's only 7% overlap. So by only using one of them, you're missing 93% of the vulnerabilities from the other scanner.
I know you sit in between these various vulnerability management platforms that we all know, but looking at just the ones that you listed, it sounds like they all have the capability that you're trying to bring in.
Qualys and Expose absolutely have ticketing integrations, right? The problem is that once they've actually identified a vulnerability and created a ticket from it, they don't actually help you with the process of remediating that vulnerability. So they still have only alerted you to the existence of that vulnerability, which you can get with the CSV dump from Qualys. We're actually tracking your vulnerability management team through the entire process. So it's not just alerting you, it's also managing the entire workflow of it's gone to the remediation teams and then gone through the process of actually verifying that the vulnerability still exists. What we do is we track that vulnerability through. We don't ever tell Qualys that the exception exists. We actually track the vulnerability for every time that it's detected through the entire process. And if your patch team patches it in the exception period, we actually close the vulnerability out.
So I will take a meeting in the interest of advice.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
I'm excited because the field that you chose to focus on, I believe that it is one of the two most prominent challenges we have today. And I was very excited up until the point about your third or fourth slide in where it became obvious to me as more of a workflow facilitation tool. Because the two reasons why patching doesn't happen. One is prioritization against all the other things that IT teams need to do. And the second is regression testing and the amount of time and effort that takes. So I don't see that this tool solves that problem. I think I would decline a meeting for those reasons.
Okay.
The most important question in the room is not being asked, which is impact analysis. The top problem for me in vulnerability management is not workflow, is not that teams can't do it in 2-week cycles, is not that we can't retest, but it's the impact of remediating that vulnerability that takes time. Equifax knew of the vulnerability 6 months before the breach. It's not that they didn't know how to patch. So there are two things missing here. One is this doesn't help, or this needs to help with the impact analysis in some way. And the second is the ticketing is still going to the same teams that need to prioritize, that need to put this in a risk ranking and say who's dying. And it's not this vulnerability here. So I won't patch it right now.
Gartner did an article actually about this specifically. One of the things that they identified is that the current prioritization metrics that are used for vulnerabilities are ineffective, specifically around medium vulnerability criticalities actually, because the general OWASP top 10, for example, right, for application security vulnerabilities fall into a medium category, but that's actually the largest vector for data exfiltration for most organizations.
Our last company for this episode is EveryKey. To judge EveryKey, we have Lakshmi returning. Welcome back. Our second judge for EveryKey will be Dan Bonet. Dan is a co-director of the Advanced Security Program. Dan was also one of my advisors back at Stanford, in the late 90s, and I was lucky enough to co-author a few publications with him on digital cache. Dan heads the Applied Cryptography Group here at Stanford and co-directs the Security Lab. His research focuses on a whole bunch of different areas of applications to cryptography to computer security, and I have to say that while many cryptographers that I've met can be kind of very pedantic people, Dan is the most systems savvy cryptographer that I know. He has authored over 100 publications in the field. He's a Packard and Alfred Sloan Fellow. He was recipient of the 2014 ACM Prize, the 2013 Gardel Prize, and in 2011 he received the Ishii Award for Industry Education Innovation. He received his PhD from Princeton University and joined Stanford in 1997. Welcome, Dan. And our third judge, we have Joseph returning. Welcome back. I wanted to introduce our speaker from EveryKey, Dave Aller. He's the VP of Sales there. He's a sales leader with over 20 years of experience leading early stage companies. EveryKey is on a mission to replace passwords and keys. They are building the world's first universal smart key that wirelessly unlocks your phone, computer, tablet, and automatically logs you into your online accounts when you're nearby and then locks everything down when you walk away.
EveryKey is on a mission, and that mission is to provide easy and secure authentication and access control to everybody. We have right now over 2,900 companies using EveryKey. We have over 5 million users per day using the EveryKey product. And again, we're at over 700% growth. The publications have been nice to us in the US. We've had some major write-ups about us, most notably probably the Wall Street Journal and the Fortune magazine. And the big elephant in the room is passwords and keys are insecure and inconvenient. It's a major problem. We all know that. Everyone in this room knows that passwords are an issue or a problem. Worldwide, they've talked about over the last few years losses for breaches of over $1 trillion, a huge number. 87% of those breaches have been caused by either lost or stolen passwords or passwords that aren't managed effectively. We want to start a revolution in access control. We want to change the way people do things. How are we going to do that? With EveryKey, which I have one with me. You're going to have real good eyesight to see it, but it's a Bluetooth device that is near your phone, your laptop, or your computer, or all the above. It's a Bluetooth device, but can also be NFC and soon to be RFID. With EveryKey, what we do is, or once you have the EveryKey device near you, you can get again that access to your smartphone, your tablet, your laptop, or even for some companies, access control for the building, for doors and things like that. And then, as I say, along with that my 211 user IDs and passwords, I can now control those more effectively. So that's what EveryKey is all about. When you walk away from EveryKey, it locks the devices. So once you get it changed, depends on the strength of the Bluetooth of the devices, but it anywhere from 5 to 10 feet, the devices will automatically lock and shut down. We also add multi-factor authentication to this technology. The other thing about it is it's fairly robust. We work with most browsers and most operating systems out there today. In fact, I very rarely run across a enterprise customer where we can't basically talk to their existing systems. So there's a couple challenges I wanted to bring up about Bluetooth, not kicking it, but Bluetooth is known to be a little bit slow, somewhat insecure, and basically on a one-to-one, one device to one device. The great engineers and developers at EveryKey basically made it faster. So now we're down to just a few milliseconds to get logged on. Welcome to the revolution we have for access control with EveryKey.
Dave, thank you for sharing your vision and your ideas with us. Two questions. One is, tell us about your competitors and why your customers are choosing you. And the second is, there are two aspects to this. There's a consumer aspect to it, right? I can go to Best Buy, Amazon, $70 or whatever, like under $100 I can get EveryKey. And then there is the enterprise use of EveryKey, which I would assume is going to be similar to YubiKey, which is not for everybody, but it's for privileged access in some way, right?
Right.
Privileged access management.
I think for like 1Password and some of these, it's just the depth and the richness of what they offer. They really don't get into multi-factor authentication, or really for that matter, the enterprise side of that, and being able to connect to IAM devices, like the Oktas of the world, or existing multi-factor authentications like maybe a Duo or someone like that. So a little different. YubiKey is not Bluetooth. It's not a wireless device. It's a physical device. I think there's some trade-off with that.
And you mentioned 2,900 or so customers. Tell us the split between the B2C and B2B aspect of that. Enterprise versus consumers.
Yeah, I would say that the consumer side is probably about 20% of that, maybe 25 and 75% is in the B2B space, we have a lot of what I'll call mid-tier to SMB. So imagine a lot of companies that have 50 to maybe 500 employees. That's kind of our sweet spot. I would say that's another 75+% of the companies that use us.
What do you think, Lakshmi? Will we take a meeting? Great. Congratulations.
What was the price of the device?
The retail price is for the hardware and for the first year of service is $69.95. You know, that's the list on it. Obviously, in volume, it drops, substantially. And basically, second year, it's really just you're paying a management fee. And again, depending on volume, you're talking about $2 to $5 a month per user.
Are you worried at all about supply chain attacks, where maybe the device comes to the consumer, but it's actually
I know
device has been hacked?
we've taken measures to address that, and I think obviously as our volumes continue to grow, we're looking at some outsource alternatives to that, and part of the security and compliance functions will need to be built into that.
No, that's great. So congratulations.
Obviously, great product, solving a big problem in our industry today. What does a 3 to 5 year roadmap look like?
Going to the enterprise, number one, and as we go to the enterprise, we're going to be needing to do more integrations to existing authentication methodologies, as well as what I'll call identity policy management, identity and access management. And I think you'll also perhaps see us move a little bit more into what I'll call continuous authentication, where we're going to look like once you get past me, the door's open.
This is a great product. I'll take a meeting.
Great. Congratulations. Welcome back, everyone. In just a moment, we're going to be announcing the winners of 2 additional prizes, a full pitch meeting with Trinity and an angel investment for myself. So in order to announce the prize from Trinity, I'm going to invite Schwark to come up. For those of you that don't know Schwark is a longtime Silicon Valley entrepreneur. He was one of the co-founders at Yodlee way back when. He basically became the CTO at Yodlee. He effectively helped create the financial technology space through the creation of Yodlee and many, many of the other apps that came out on top of Yodlee. Later in his career, he co-founded and ran TrueAccess, which got acquired by MasterCard. And he also was an executive for some time at LifeLock, and post that he became a general partner at Trinity Ventures.
Firstly, thank you all for joining the event, and thank you, Neil, for putting this fantastic event together. Trinity Ventures is an early stage venture firm. We're investing out of a $400 million fund, primarily do seed to Series A and Series B investments. So it was fantastic and fascinating to hear about all of your interesting products and companies. So firstly, congratulations to all of you taking your companies to where they are today. It was a hard decision to make. There were some interesting companies here to choose from. So picking one actually ended up being a little bit harder than I imagined it would be. We ultimately ended up zeroing in on EveryKey as our pick for
Now our last set of prizes, I wanted to echo Schwark's sentiments around, we had a lot of great companies. Not an easy choice by any means. And let me also mention that while I initially was thinking about making one $25,000 angel investment into one of these companies, I've actually decided to make 2 angel investments. The first angel investment that I will make will be into Secteria, run by Benji Bustaby. Congratulations. Benji, as I mentioned, was a former team member of mine, and I think one important thing in entrepreneurship that's of critical super importance is the team and the people. And I've seen him build and execute, and I think that his solution actually addresses not only a bunch of workflow problems that a bunch of organizations still have, even though it may not be the most interesting part of what he's going to build out in the future, but I look forward to see him incorporating the feedback from the judges and continuing to build out to build a successful company in the space. So congratulations, Benji. The $25,000 angel investment that I'd like to award will be to OnionID. Congratulations, Amir. So I look forward to continuing to support entrepreneurship and security innovation. Thank you all for being partners in that journey.